You often find in local government the first signs of what national governments will do 15 or 20 years hence. Those of us with long memories will recall that an awful lot of what is now called the political correctness of national government began in local authorities, particularly those run by people such as Ken Livingstone. Back in the 1980s, we laughed at them and said that they only strengthened the cause of conservatism. In fact, those ideas came to dominate national government and indeed the national culture, and are now enshrined in law and are pretty much followed by everybody. I think there is a great tendency among the modern left to believe that conservatives are not just wrong, but bad, and that they're therefore entitled to close them down. And I think this is a sign of this. I don't think it'll be the last time it happens. And I think that we should take it quite seriously as a presage of things to come.
Okay, so a warning from Peter Hitchens there. Yasmin, tell me what you make of the attempted shutdown.
I think we have to be careful not to just carelessly use the expression "the right." The NatCon are not within that spectrum. There are some very, very hard right people speaking. I do not believe the conference should have been shut down. But it is interesting to me that we're talking about this when 3 days ago in Berlin, a big conference on Palestinian rights, which was going to have lots of a doctor speaking, an academic who's a dean at Glasgow, that was cancelled for exactly the same reason.
Exactly the same reason. Goodness. Okay.
Yeah. And so I think, there is something going on where this sort of preemptive, and here, last October, the National Geographic, October, I think. No, it was, I can't remember. Last year, the PalFest, which is the Palestinian Literary Festival, which has been going on for 20 years, supported by big publishers and so on, poets, musicians. The Royal Geographical Society, which was booked as a venue 3 days before, cancelled it. So we've got this going on all over, and I think, as Peter said, it's. I mean, I don't agree with his political correctness views because I'm very politically correct, but there is something which will change our society if this goes on.
Yeah. So the cancellation of freedom of speech, in terms of the Israel-Palestine argument, I suppose the fact that that's come into the public sphere even more so because of the terror attacks on October the 7th means that there are, perhaps people are thinking about sides in all this. You've got the right and the left. You've got the Jewish perspective. You've got the Palestinian perspective. You've got Israel and Palestine. So it's this side taking that public authorities are very nervous of. Let's hear from Melanie Phillips, the Times contributor. She was there today. She's due to speak tomorrow. She still doesn't know whether that's going to actually happen or not. But here's what she had to say earlier.
We were barricaded in. There was very little food and water. As the staff here were absolutely heroic. The venue is owned by a Tunisian gentleman who is simply a businessman. And he has no particular brief for the views being expressed at the conference, but he was absolutely determined not to be intimidated. He thought it was appalling. And he dug his heels in. Very, very brave individual. He was directly threatened, I believe, by the mayor's people who said, "We will shut down your business altogether." His wife was threatened. The staff was threatened. The people bringing in plates and cutlery and food were all told they wouldn't work again. The whole thing was an exercise in mafia-style intimidation.
Peter, Nigel Farage has said it's just like Brexit. The Brussels elite have exhibited their cancel culture on a global stage. Is that a comparison made for headlines, or is that a fair point?
It's like everything that Mr. Farage said. It's a bundle of cliches, isn't it? Containing nothing of any interest. There has been for a long time an assault on freedom of speech. In the meetings and which Yasmin mentioned, I am a free speech absolutist because I think that it is the only way to defend free speech. I will absolutely defend, particularly the speaking of ideas which I strongly disapprove of. Because there is no other way of maintaining defense. The American First Amendment, which we can't have for various reasons, is the ideal. And I think that anybody who seriously wants free discussion should support something along those lines. And it's absolutely vital that when someone is saying something you don't like, that's the point at which you have to do it. Most people don't actually like free speech very much. In the universities of this country, it's under grave danger. I remember I had to go to one university in Liverpool a few years ago to make a speech, and I was required by the student union to sign all kinds of promises that I wouldn't do this and wouldn't say that, and I refused to sign them. We ended up holding the meeting in the street, in Hope Street, the beautiful street in Liverpool that runs between the cathedrals, and it went very well because we weren't under any pressure from any organisation. We could all say what we wanted to, and I have to say, open air meetings are very refreshing. I recommend them to people who are told they can't use halls. Just get out there in the open air and do it there. It's.
Have you ever had to not do an event, anyway, Peter?
People don't fall asleep.
Yeah. Have you ever had to not do an event entirely? Obviously, that one you took onto the street. Have you been sort of cancelled entirely from a speaking engagement?
I think so. No, I once faced a very funny picket at Balliol College in Oxford, where a whole load of people came and stood silently in my way as I approached them, holding pieces of paper containing denunciations of me. And they were so silent and so determined. I pointed out to one of them, because she was walking backwards in front of me, that she was about to walk backwards into a bush. But she was so determined to make her point that she wouldn't pay any attention. Indeed, did walk backwards into the bush.
She wouldn't have liked you pointing that out.
I know a lot of this is ludicrous, and I think that one has to take it with a certain amount of humour. And I also was once ordered off a National Union Students platform in Blackpool by some idiot who misunderstood something I said, and was then escorted out of the building by the police, who offered to escort me to the railway station, effectively run me out of town.
Goodness me!
I wasn't having any of that.
Yeah, yeah.
But this is what was striking, was the way in which all kinds of people behaved, who because this is the National Union of Students, would be future people of prominence in our society. They didn't really have the instinct which a civilized society needs to defend free speech, especially when you disagree with it. And that is the absolute key. The more you disagree with it, the more you have to defend people's freedom to say it. And the person who actually saved me to some extent on that occasion was Howard Marks, it was a meeting on drugs, my great opponent on the legalization of drugs, but who when the mob were trying to have me dragged off the stage, put his arm around me and said, if he's going, I'm going too, God bless him.
Nice bit of solidarity. Yasmin, I'm desperate to know if you have ever had your freedom of speech limited. Have you been cancelled from an event? Have you ever tried to block someone from talking or block an event from going ahead?
Well, I'm exactly the opposite of Peter on this. I'm not an absolutist, basically because there's a lot of dishonesty about freedom of speech. We're living through, in America today, now, at some of the Ivy League universities, they're banning the discussion about what Israel is doing in Gaza. Don't talk to me about freedom of speech. It does not exist, and a very good thing too. People with power. I know because an insider told me this, an insider who's just left, for example, that for a while, the BBC had decided that people with left-wing views would not be invited on. These things happen behind the scenes. Yeah, for a while. And there was a particular editor. And so...
She's not, Peter.
I don't think there is an absolute freedom to say what we want, because words hurt. But I don't like the way things are moving at the moment.